The Miami Heat are the first 10 seed in NBA history to advance to the postseason following their last play-in victory over the Atlanta Hawks, setting up a first-round matchup between them and the Cleveland Cavaliers. We're going to talk about all the things on a recap from that game, as well as what I expect the first round to go for in Miami, specifically for that game one. Hello, everybody. My name is Manuel Buroz, and a lot of Heat fans believe that the Miami Heat might be doing the unthinkable this postseason run. Things are looking very, very much possible for the Miami Heat. Before we get into that, let's make sure that we're continuing to subscribe to the Heat Digest community. You guys have done a great job at continuing to grow our channel, continuing to grow our community, and we only ask you guys continue to do that as we try and give you guys as up-to-date content as we can with regards to Miami Heat, everything going into this postseason run. Now, the first thing we'll talk about is obviously Mitchell for the win. The Miami Heat MVP, in my opinion, was Davon Mitchell. Now, I mentioned in the preview for the Hawks and Heat playing game that I thought Davon Mitchell was going to be the X factor. Why? Defensively, he was going to draw the Trae Young matchup. He's a very physical defender, very aggressive defender, and I think he was going to be able to wear down Trae Young. Now, Trae Young still had almost a 30-10 game, but I do believe it was a big part of Mitchell kind of making it a lot harder for him to get those numbers. Again, the Heat pretty much had the game after three quarters. Now, we've all heard that story before. The Miami Heat almost did blow the game in the fourth quarter after they were up by 15. I think they lead the association in most losses after leading by 15 or more through three quarters, but they obviously were able to take it out and be able to weather that Hawks storm. Davon Mitchell, though, offensively, that's where I really think he made his imprint. 16 points, 5 rebounds. He shot the ball very well from 3, 4 for 9. I want to say that's a career high, if not close to it. And obviously timely buckets. He down the stretch, it's funny because Trae Young obviously was guarding Davon Mitchell, and we all know Davon Mitchell's not a great shooter. To be honest with you, 4 for 9 is probably not going to be something consistent, at least this playoff run. Maybe next year once he gets in the lab and starts getting up some shots. But if we get 2 threes from Davon Mitchell, I think that's a great night. Especially now, 4 for 9 is a lot of threes attempted. I don't know if we necessarily want him shooting that many threes, but I always say that one less take, that's 50%. He's looking like a great shooter. So each shot that he took, I do think was timely. The one at the end of the shot clock in the corner was a big one. The one that I really think kind of encapsulated the entire game for Davon Mitchell was in overtime, a chance to put the dagger in the game. He shoots the 3 that Trae Young was baiting him into taking. He misses it, but Trae Young doesn't box out Mitchell. He crashes the board, gets the offensive rebound, swing, ends up back in Mitchell's hands. That time he knocks it down. I think he was a much better catch and shoot player than off the bounce, even though he did hit a big one on going under a screen, going over a screen. But I do think that specific play, that sequence right there, summed up the entire game for Davon Mitchell and the Miami Heat. A chance to go on and do a dominant performance, have a dominant performance against the Hawks. Kind of got ruffled a little bit thanks to Atlanta, but eventually the Heat do pull out and become the first 10 seed in NBA history to advance to the postseason, setting up a matchup that I kind of have always been anticipating with the Cleveland Cavaliers, the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, one of the best teams in the association this year, a 60-win team. First 60-win team in Cavs history that didn't include LeBron James. This has been a really, really good Cleveland team. Now, I'll take you guys back to a few weeks ago when I talked about if the Heat fall on the Cleveland side of the bracket, meaning away from Boston, I really like our chance of making a deep postseason run. Now, real quick, for me, the floor, let's make the first round at least a 6 or 7 game series. If we do that, I'm happy. I can live with the result. The ceiling, something I just don't see realistically happening or going past a deep second round. Now, if we win this series, we would play either the 4th seed and the 5th seed, which I can't remember off the top of my head who those are. I know the Pacers are, I believe, the 4th and 5th seed. The 4th seed and 5th seed, I do believe, are the Knicks and Pistons. Now, that matchup, I think, is favorable for Miami in a lot of ways. Obviously, the Heat did beat the Knicks back in their deep finals run a few years ago. The Pistons are a young team, and I think that's going to be kind of a theme here for Miami. But being on the side of the bracket, I think, gives the Heat the best chance to make a deep postseason run. Realistically, do I expect an ECF? No. But I've seen crazier things happen with this Miami team, so I'm not going to rule that out completely. But I will say that is very unlikely. Now, when we talk about the Miami Heat versus the Cleveland Cavaliers, these are the Miami Heat numbers. When we looked at it before, when we talked about the Hawks and Heat, a lot of things concern me. This series as a whole is going to be how good does the offense for the Miami Heat operate on a night-to-night basis. you see there, the Miami Heat are 24th in the association in points per game. They're 7th in defense. They're one of the best defenses in the league, and that's not what I have a problem with. And I'm a big believer in, defense wins championships and all that kind of stuff. Like, I get all that. I'm here for it. You're never going to hear me say otherwise. However, at a certain point, you're going to need to put the ball in the hole. That is the name of the game. Score the ball and score it more times than your opponents. The Miami Heat cannot have a rough series shooting the ball. They have to be able to try and be as efficient as possible with scoring the ball. I'm not just talking about the 3-ball. I'm talking about keeping turnovers down. I'm talking about if you have a lead, you have to be able to hold on to it through 4 quarters. It can't be 3.5 quarters with this Cleveland team. Very, very important for the Miami Heat. I think the overarching theme for this series for the Heat will be the offensive side of things. Now, you look at the Cleveland side. Again, they're a lot different now. They are just outside the top 10 in defense, but they're the number 1 team in the association. We're talking about points per game at 122 pretty much. This is one of the best offenses. You look across the board, they're nothing short of 1s, 2s, 3s, the occasional 13 and 23, but that's on 2-pointers. Everything else for the Cleveland Cavaliers has been efficient. They have been one of the best offenses in the league for a reason. Davon Mitchell, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen, Max Strus. They have been able to come together under Kenny Atkinson and have, I think, their best season as a organization, especially talking about without a LeBron James on the roster. Because we're talking about offense being the biggest thing for the Miami Heat, to me, it comes down to, do Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo, offensively speaking, have the series we need them to have? Now, Tyler, to his credit, has had an absolutely great 2-game run right now in the play-in tournament. Now, obviously, you got to go to Cleveland. It's a little bit different. Teams are going to be preparing to scout for you. I think partially, if I'm being honest, I think Cleveland was preparing for Miami more than anybody, because I think, again, they're just it's a tougher matchup for Cleveland than it is for Miami. We talk about not just those two, but we also talk about Khalil Ware. I think he's going to give Jarrett Allen some fits in the post and in the paint. I do think Davon Mitchell, similar to what I said about Trae Young, I think Darius Garland is at risk of being, kind of locked up and having some off nights, so to speak, against Davon Mitchell, because Darius Garland, don't get me wrong, I love his game. I think he's a really, really good offensive player, one of the best guards in the association. He ain't shooting the ball like Trae Young. So I do believe that's going to make it a little bit harder for Darius Garland, because he likes to handle the ball, likes to be shifty. Davon Mitchell thrives in that. He loves being able to turn defenders, make them work. So I do think that might be a matchup to keep an eye on going into this first game. And you also got, your Max Struses that I think are going to be pivotal for the Cavs. For us, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Haywood Highsmith, those type of players I think are all going to be kind of jumbled up together as key role players for both teams. So I'm very, very interested to see what kind of comes out in this first game. Now, the biggest thing for me going into this game is actually a little bit different, and I'll talk about what the X factor for me is here in a moment. But before we do that, let's look at the 3 games that these two teams played against each other. Now, we'll look at it from each perspective. Now, this is the Miami Heat perspective. Now, the Heat obviously took the first game to 122 to 113, and then dropped the next 2, 126 to 106, and then 112, 107. Now, aside from that 10-point loss, and even still, 10 points, nowadays is nothing crazy. It's been a relatively close game. It's been single digits or for 2 out of the 3 games. And again, that 10-point game, to me, 10 points nowadays, that's as well as a single digit game, because the way the 3-ball is, the way the offenses are scoring, and the pace of the game, 10 points can evaporate just like that. So you look at this from the Miami side of things, they were very, very good, very, very competitive against this Cleveland team throughout the year. You're putting up about 111 points against them. You're rebounding the ball really well. You're moving the ball well, which I think is going to be big because of everything that they're moving the ball very, very well, which I think is going to be a big part of this series for the Heat. You're not going to be able to one-on-one these players. I know, defensively speaking, the guard play of Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell is not astronomical, and I do think that's kind of where Tyler Hero can take advantage of it on the perimeter, because at the paint, with Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley, you're not going to be able to really get a lot of uncontested layups. But you're able to attack the guard play, get to that mid-range pull-up for Tyler. I think that'll be very, very big for him. But being able to attack a defense that's rotating like you do when you're swinging the ball around the perimeter, that's going to be really big for Miami, in my opinion. And you look at the scoring for them, the shooting, 47%, 43%, about 46% clip for the Heat shooting the ball from the field. From three-point, about 38%. These are good numbers for the Miami Heat. Now when we look over at the Cleveland Cavaliers side of things, I think it's very similar. Again, they're averaging about 117, so they're only 6 points better right now than the Miami Heat. Rebounding the ball, really similar. Assists, really similar. Everything looks about the same. Now, those 10 steals are where I'm a little bit concerned about. The Heat cannot give the Cleveland Cavaliers extra possessions. They can't do it. Whether live ball or dead ball turnovers, you can't do it. Now, the blocks is a little bit interesting as well because, like I mentioned, Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley, they're going to protect the paint. So you're going to have to get, to your floater. You're going to have to get to your short jumper pull-ups in the paint to try and get over those shot block attempts of the two bigs for Cleveland. Shooting the ball 50% just about for the Cavs, 36% from three. Again, if you look at the tape between these two teams, nothing jumps out at you. Nothing's over here looking at it like, oh my God, this one area is going to really, really be a hard thing for the Heat to do or for the Cleveland Cavaliers to take care of. It's very similar. And it's going to be things that you always talk about. Again, taking care of the ball for Miami. Picking the right opportunities for the Heat to be able to score. That's why I think overarching, it's going to be a lot of offense for the Heat. If the Heat come out of this series in any amount of games, whether it's a sweep, 5, 6, or 7 games, it's going to be the offense. If we have a rough offensive shooting night, the Miami Heat will struggle, and they'll probably lose that game. If we have a good offensive shooting night, I think we're going to be giving Cleveland a run for their money. I really do. And which kind of segues into my X factor for this series, specifically for Game 1. My X factor is a little more unconventional. It's not a player. It's actually all the players at the same time. The Cleveland Cavaliers' average age is around 26 years old, while the Miami Heat's average age is about 27 years old. Why is that my X factor for me? Because these Cleveland Cavaliers have been given the green light of they are championship contenders. They are able to make deep playoff run. They are a 61 team. They're going to have home court advantage through the entire Eastern Conference. There comes pressure with that. No one on this roster, aside from Max Strus, coaches included, well, Kenny Atkinson was part of Golden State. But aside from Kenny Atkinson and from Max Strus, no one else in this team, on this roster, has ever made a postseason run past the second round. None of them, including Davon Mitchell in the Western Conference. He never made it to the WCF. If I remember correctly, he might have made it actually once. But I know he wasn't there consistently. I'll say that. He made a lot of deep runs in the second round. He wasn't able to get over that hump. He never made it to the NBA Finals. Those are the things that I'm talking about when I say the age. Because then you look over at the Miami Heat, yes, Tyler Hero is young-ish now. Bam Adebayo, young-ish, But aside from, those two have been to the NBA Finals. They've been through postseason runs. You have an Eric Spoelstra who, coaching at the helm, coaching a deep playoff run compared to Kenny Atkinson, is an absolute seasoned veteran. So this first game, I'll be honest, it should be a Cleveland win. I don't think that the Heat should be pegged as favorites going into Cleveland trying to win this game on the road to set the tone. With that being said, this could be the perfect opportunity for Miami to do that because Cleveland, again, as a sports city, as a sports town, they haven't had this type of atmosphere since LeBron was there in the 4 years before he went to Los Angeles. So it's going to be a lot. I would not be surprised if some of these Cavs players, maybe not the stars, I'm not talking about Mitchell and Garland, but Strus, Okoro, those kind of players, Ty Jerome, who's had a really, really good year, honestly, they kind of, not wither, but the moment gets to them. Maybe they come out a little sluggish, a little slow. They're not hitting those open shots. They're not hitting the clean ones. They're not getting clean looks. And that could be the perfect opportunity for Miami to try and upset in Game 1. And if Miami wins Game 1, it's a different series. I truly believe that. Because all you got to do is get one if you're the road team. You get one, things become a lot different. So that's going to do it for this episode of Heat Digest. Let me know down below, do you think the experience for the Miami Heat will be a big part in possibly an upset in the first round? We talk about not just the players, but also the coaches. Or if there's something else that you think will be the deciding factor in this series for the Miami Heat. Until the next one, guys.